Good evening, and thanks for coming out tonight for our next lecture here in our Brookings Mountain West lecture series. I'm Bill Brown. Welcome again on behalf of all my colleagues at Brookings Mountain West and UNLV. We're here to talk about a subject near and dear to our hearts tonight, Nevada's advanced industries. And we're especially pleased to have colleague Mark Moreau out from Brookings in Washington, D.C. But Mark is not just another scholar visiting. Mark's been intimately involved in the founding of Brookings Mountain West. He and Rob Lang co-wrote a study that looked at this region back in '05, I think, right?
No,
'07? Yeah, '07, yes, published in '07.
Just in time for the economic crash.
Right.
We need it.
And Mark's helped, with Rob Lang, helped write an economic study of the region. Mark's has lived and resided in the region in his exciting life. But this is the first time we've had you actually speaking in our lecture series, so that's long overdue. But Mark's going to talk tonight about some of his ongoing research and give us, I don't want to forget anything. Mark also is a principal author of the quarterly economic analysis of the region we do called the Mountain Monitor. So if you're on our listserv, you'll see my announcements about this publication. If you're not, we'd be happy to add that to you. So Mark's going to have a conversation tonight. We'll have time for questions as always. Thanks to our co-sponsors from Greenspun College. We'll have the lecture up on our website in a few days. As early as tomorrow, we'll have Mark's PowerPoint up on our website. So if you want to refer back to any of the data points that Mark brings up, you'll have a reference site for that. So I'll let Mark take it away.
Good. Well, good evening, everybody, and it's great to be here. And I'm a senior fellow at Brookings, and I'm going to preview, as Bill said, some new work. This is, really the first time we presented this work. It's going to evolve into a major national study that we'll release in February. And I want to talk about what we're calling advanced industries. These are R&D and STEM oriented industries. I'll explain what those are and what we mean by that I think we could say inordinately drive regional and national economies. They're the main sources of high wage employment in America. You'll see what I mean by them in a second. They're not just advanced manufacturing, such as the aerospace industry. That's not just advanced services like software. This is a new cut that tries to get beyond somewhat artificial distinctions between manufacturing and services. We don't think that the two can be separated very easily. We think that high tech and low tech is not a particularly helpful distinction. And I think we could safely say that the swath of industries we're talking about here capture a lot of what matters to the nation and states and regions especially, and we'll talk about why that too. Virtually all of Nevada's target sectors for economic diversification are advanced industries. Many of Las Vegas's and Nevada's coolest and highest profile companies and most important companies are advanced industries. Switch is a classic advanced industry company. IGT is an advanced industry company. Yes, Tesla is an advanced industry company. We'll go into what makes these companies advanced in our view. But they matter inordinately to Las Vegas's future, the state's future, and America's future. And you'll see why there are reasons to be excited about their future, but there's also significant causes for concern. So what I'd like to do is take about a half hour or so to introduce you to the sector. I want to first provide a little context of the moment, why we think this is an important conversation to have, give you some input on what the advanced industries are, what they are, why they matter, and then I want to give you some trends. What's going on with the sector, both mostly nationally for now, but have done a few drill downs on what's going on here. After that, I want to talk a little bit about how regions can promote the emergence of the advanced industry sector. So I want to talk a little about strategy. And I'm going to leave time so we can hear your views. I'm really interested in your reactions and probes. Let's just look at the context, though. Nationally and in Nevada and Las Vegas, clearly the economic crisis, was something of an existential challenge to the existing growth model of the nation, and especially of regions. Employment and output crashed, have recovered quite slowly. You could see, Las Vegas lost more than 100,000 jobs, 122,000 jobs. Recovery, the number may be a little higher now than the number I show here, but you have not gained back the jobs you had. This is one of the harshest crashes in the country. So it's appropriate, I think it is appropriate that a lot of concerns were raised, voiced nationally and locally, and about the fundamental viability of the basic economic model of the economy. I think through this entire period, a lot of people have been trying to figure out what matters in economic development, what matters, where are the sources of sustainable long-term competitive growth. Clearly at Brookings, we started talking very soon after the crash, influenced by some very insightful remarks from Larry Summers at the time about the fundamental need to pivot nationally and locally from a consumption-based, import-oriented, real estate-driven economy, and with at least diversification into complementary source of technology-based, technology-oriented, higher value traded sectors. And I think that insight has been helpful. And in 2011, we did work, we had our dates wrong, it's more recent, it seems like longer ago. In 2011, my group at Brookings worked with Brookings Mountain West and SRI International to deliver a strategy to help the state diversify. To the state's credit, responded to crisis with a sense or an intuition that it had to operate differently, at least in theory. So I think we provided a fact-based strategy that focused on 8 target sectors projected to grow in the post-crisis environment. And if you look at the targets, tourism, gaming, we were thinking especially of growth opportunities within that industry in its high growth, higher tech portions, but business, IT ecosystems, aerospace and defense, manufacturing, clean energy, logistics and operations, health and medical services, mining, agriculture. So these were what we said at that time seemed to be plausible growth areas for the state. Our criteria were that the state had some toehold in them, and there were projections of growth and good opportunities in the years going forward. If you look at these targets, they have a distinctly high-tech growth orientation. I would note several of these are in fact growing much faster than the rest of the economy now. We can talk about that. So that's the context for this work. Let's talk, so here's the thing I want to say. No less than 5 of those industries are what we identified at that time. We are now calling advanced industries. What are they? Advanced industries supersector categorization resulted from the impatience I suggested with sort of artificial delineations and trying to get at a single label and a designation of a single swath of industries that matter inordinately and that have a lot in common. So we kind of wanted to get to a unified field theory of the high-value industries in America that matter most and that sit amidst the most critical trends. I mean, these are industries that are situated amidst the relentless pace of technology change. They are blurring the distinction between manufacturing and services often, and they're pervaded by digital solutions. That you can't separate the digital world from the material world. We were trying to get at how some of these things are converging. So we worked out a definition of a group of strategic industries based on just two metrics, that they had more than 1.5 times the usual industry's R&D investment, and had about twice the nation's STEM, science, technology, engineering, math, worker intensity. So, and we said advanced industries are the R&D intensive industries that concentrate the nation's STEM, technology, engineering, math workforce. So I think you could see that you can focus on a couple extremely just a few metrics can identify a kind of firm that is inordinately important. What are these industries? They include 35 advanced manufacturing industries ranging from aerospace, pharma, motor vehicles and parts, medical equipment, the energy swath. Some portions of it are critical. The fracking development is a quintessential advanced industry. Technology innovation is driven in huge productivity gains in the oil and gas world. Electricity generation, all of our clean tech industries are advanced industries. And then we see 12 services, telecom, R&D consulting, software, computer systems. This is an intuitive group. All of these are the highest tech, really most productive industries we have in Las Vegas. These are companies like Ford, Boeing, Lockheed, Intel, Dow, Lilly, Exxon, Google, Apple. At the national level, here it is. It's IGT, SuperNap, but Bally's, iStream Planet, Originate, Banjo, all these cool companies here. The ones that you have your eyes on that seem promising and offer or are advanced industries. So that's the what of the sector. As to why it matters, the short answer is these industries really anchor regional and national economic competitiveness. The sector is modest in size, but it does have some heft. It's about 12.3 million workers, 9% of the U.S. employment, direct employment. We'll talk about multipliers, but we're talking 4.4 million more workers than finance, insurance, real estate combined. It's smaller by 5 million than healthcare and social service, but it's a significant activity in its own right. Output of about 2.7 million. But here's the important thing: it's punching way it's punching way above its weight. But I want to talk first. Wages nearly double the average wage, and contrary to what one might expect. This is not only the Mark Newberns of the world, it's not only PhDs and master's people and engineers. 1 out of 2 of these jobs are available to someone with less than a 4-year degree. So this is an interesting surprising mix of highly qualified, advanced professional engineers, but then a lot of people with a modest level of STEM dexterity able to work in the production side of these industries, whether it's technicians or robot operators or what have you. So I think one point I just want to touch on here is that this is, while this is not the answer for our opportunity problems in America, these are more accessible as industries and employers for all kinds of people than people think. But I want to talk, though, the industries punch way above their weight in terms of, okay, 9% of workforce, 18% of GDP, so these are extremely productive firms and industries that are punching above their weight and highly productive. They're 60% of exports. They employ 80% of our engineers as a country. They generate 80% of the patents, and these firms are responsible for 90% of private sector R&D. So this is our innovation base as a country and as a region. So I think that you'll agree that these are a significant swath of industries. And as such, they're the core driver of the economy and radiating impacts. They drive productivity in other industries. They support extremely long supply chains. And they stimulate local economies. We calculate a local economic multiplier of this group of industries. It varies across them, but of about 1 for every direct advanced industry job, and another 1.4 outside the industry. So the 12 million direct jobs, are supporting, about 30 million jobs in the country. So, these are crown jewel industries for any region. This is a consequential swath of the economy. Let's talk, though, about some trends that we're seeing in the economy. Let's drill down on a few things. In aggregate, over the long term, the sector's employment has, I think, driven by extreme productivity gains, gone sideways. Output has soared, but with essentially the same job base that it had over since 1980. So GDP growth was 20% faster in these sectors than the rest of the economy. Since the recession, both employment and output have grown, though, faster, and employment has begun to tick up in these industries. We're trying to get a handle on that. I think there has been a recovery in the manufacturing, on the manufacturing side to an extent, and simply the strong growth in some of the services that we'll see as contributing. But advanced industry sector has added 1 million jobs since the crash. The employment and output growths 1.8 and 1.6 times higher than the rest of the economy. So advanced services like computer systems and web services have led the growth. Certain manufacturing industries have added thousands of jobs. And lying behind these trends, though, are diverse and changing stories. This is not a monolithic set of industries, though I'm saying that they are related to each other. Real annual output growth is up all over the sector, but the pace of it varies across industries. As you can see, semiconductor manufacturing on the left, communications equipment have seen astronomical growth in output. Energy, metal ore mining has seen a huge output surge on an annualized basis. And then certainly, software has been a strong performer across in the recent years. In terms of employment growth, you can see that too varies. This is really actually pretty fascinating to me. You've got, pharmaceuticals are employing significantly more people, had strong annual growth. Motor vehicles are now positive in the United States, but look at all of the carnage across the manufacturing body, array of industries. Manufacturing in general is now extremely productive, but it is doing it with negative job growth. Some of that's offshoring, but it's also automation. Meanwhile, we're seeing strong employment growth in computer systems, design, software, but satellite telecom negative. So this gives you a sense of the variation of these industries. IT to the right, we're talking about 8, 9, 10% annual growth in recent years. Now, the economy, one of the things we like to say at the Metro program at Brookings is that we don't have a national economy. We don't really have state economies. We have a linked network of individual regional economies, ecosystems, if you will. You could talk about supply chains, you could talk about clusters, but we know from all of our work that we see that we have an extremely variegated map across industry after industry, economic indicator after economic indicator. So, first, this is a metropolitan activity. 70% of the advanced industry jobs in the country occur within the nation's 100 largest metropolitan areas. You don't see pharmaceutical operations or software, for the most part, in the middle of Montana. You see these are largely urban activities, many of them. So that's and that I think comports with knowledge transfer theory, all kinds of synergies at the local level. But let's look at this map, though. Every one of the 100 largest metros has some presence, at least a few thousand advanced industry jobs. But the specialization, the size, the depth of those clusters varies extremely. Look at this map. San Jose, right up here, has an incredible, 30% of jobs are direct employment in these industries that we've said pay twice as much as the rest of the nation's jobs. Seattle, 16%. Wichita, 15.5%. Detroit, 15% of these. Big part of that's auto, but they have surprising engineering-oriented presence, and that's driving a lot of economic activity there. San Francisco, 14%. But then at the other end, you've got places like Lakeland, Florida, 3.9%. McAllen, Texas, 2%. Essentially no advanced industry presence. So to put this in perspective, a worker in San Jose is 15 times more likely to be in an advanced industry, one of the industries we say has the brightest future, than a worker in McAllen. So there are tremendous variations in the economic activity and the specialization of regions. And the nature of regions' specializations varies. 38 of the 100 metros, largest metros, support largely manufacturing-oriented advanced industry sectors. Detroit, we talked about motor vehicles, parts, iron and steel, mills. Palm Bay, Florida, surprising audio and video equipment, semiconductors, photonics. Boise, computer and peripherals, semiconductors, strong focus in high-tech manufacturing. So there are Wichita is an interesting for that. Few metros involved in energy. Salt Lake City, a lot of iron or metal ore mining. Oklahoma City, oil and gas, fulcrum of the natural gas and other energy activities. Birmingham, a huge complex of electric power generation. And then there are services places that San Francisco, clearly Denver with satellite telecom, cable programming, data processing, Boston, the classic, software, scientific R&D, biotech, web services, and Washington, D.C., satellite telecoms, scientific R&D, consulting, a huge amount of software tied to the defense base. So you see, there are a lot of ways to participate in this economy, a lot of different specializations. And then there's a group of balanced metro areas: San Jose, Seattle, Austin, deep in all facets, participating really deeply in these economies, synergies building up across manufacturing into software and back. These are probably the most resilient economies in the country in terms of the future technology evolution. Let's look. This state ranks low in terms of its presence, a thin advanced industry, but it's surprisingly, one that is growing. Only 5.1% of jobs in it, 61,000 jobs statewide, 10% job growth since 2010, significantly better than the rest of the economy. Statewide strengths: data processing and hosting, pharma and medicine, manufacturing, computer systems design, software, and metal ore mining. So there's a presence here, $16 billion output, and pretty good output growth since 2010. Las Vegas, closer to interest, looks a little less good on output growth, but job growth since 2010 about 9%. Top growth interest: data processing, again, computer science, medical and diagnostic, software, very strong here. And what's interesting is the annualized output here is very good. It compares favorably both to the state and nationally. We're talking in data processing, hosting, output change, gone up about 40% a year since 2010. 20% a year gains in software. So some of the things that, the activities that have become pretty well known here are generating real value. Now, so these are some positive trends. I want to, now darken the story a little bit nationally, because it's important to assess. Okay, we've identified the presence of a swath of industries, and then we have noted variations and kind of studied its shape. It's important to look at its competitiveness on a worldwide basis. And here the story becomes more troubling. I want to go into a few things here. First, let's look at three indicators. First, I want to talk about productivity. The U.S. is still one of the most productive advanced industry countries in the world, and yet since 1999, Austria, Denmark, Germany, Hungary, and Sweden have all enjoyed faster productivity across these industries. So we're number 8, or whatever it is not the most encouraging, rallying cry. I think that there are real questions about the momentum in the sector. Let's look at the concentration in these industries. You can look from the left across. You can see a number of nations, Korea, Germany, Japan, Finland, are increasing their presence in these crown jewel industries. The U.S. is one of a group of countries that are, transferring out of these industries as a share of economic activity. I think that's troubling. Clearly, if we're saying that these are the core source of export income, anchors of the traded sector, we're losing ground as a whole. Finally, and the most telling, is negative trade balances. Advanced industries export more than $1 trillion worth of goods, anchor some of our most successful industries, and account for about 60% of U.S. exports, so that's all good. But the U.S. all the same ran a $630 billion trade deficit in advanced industries in 2012. Stark warning on competitiveness. You can see here most of the nation's deficit owes to goods exports and energy. Clearly, the energy line is beginning to come back up with unconventional shale and oil, gas, reducing dependency. But there are some, and you can see aerospace is a big winner for the country, have a positive trade balance. But if you look across here, trade deficits are seen even in purported strengths, like communications equipment, computer equipment, motor vehicles, and pharma. So there's something wrong with that picture. Energy industries, remain negative, but the shale and oil boom will help. So the bottom line here is that productivity, output, and trade data all suggest the U.S. competitiveness in advanced industries is at minimum under threat. And we've said that these are a crucial anchor of our economy. Now, let's go a little farther and talk about the why of this troubling slippage. We talk about a lot of factors. The high U.S. has a high corporate tax rate compared to the world. That doesn't help. Neither does U.S. failure to challenge and reverse competitor nations' unfair trade practices and mercantilism. I think that's a real factor. We've seen nations unfairly subsidize industries or play games with trade rules. But I want to focus on 3 areas of concern. First, Americans need to recognize that technology innovation is absolutely critical to this swath of industries. And our advantage is frankly slipping. U.S. maintains a formidable technology development base, no doubt, but R&D investments are slipping as a country. As you see here, patenting per million workers over the last few years has really slipped beneath competitors like Japan, Switzerland, Finland, and Germany. This is a relatively new development. We don't fully understand what's going on here. Clearly, there are new models of research. There may be other influences, but our unchallenged dominance of patenting is slipping, and it's not just the rise of the rest. I mean, you can see that our established challengers have upped their game. It's not just new emerging nations getting into the game and patenting heavily. Second, we need to acknowledge the nation has developed a serious skills deficit by comparison to its competitors. Here, one can detail a ton of depressing metrics. I'm not going to pile on, but for now, I just want to note that U.S. students and young workers' tepid interests in STEM subjects, again, close to Mark Newbern's heart and others, but critical science, tech, engineering, and math disciplines has really quite mediocre share of population, working age population with a STEM degree. U.S. is number 27. It's not bad, but it's not good enough. Percentage of graduates majoring in STEM fields, U.S. is 33rd, less than 1 in 5 graduates of an undergraduate degree has a STEM credential. So, these are why, in other work we're bringing out in a few weeks, we're going to suggest some ways that Nevada can crack the code on improving its STEM workforce. And I think that's post-Tesla, as we see this growth in some of the IT areas, the long difficulties in hiring, I think are becoming a constraint for some of your most, your growing companies. And then finally, Americans need to realize that the nation has allowed its advanced industries platform as visible in its metropolitan regions to atrophy. Advanced industries cluster in specific places because they can secure the inputs they need there to compete globally. But check out these maps. This is something I published last month. 1980, on the left, 50 of the country's largest 100 metropolitan areas had at least 10% of their workforce in advanced industries. Okay, so 10% were engaged in this kind of high value synergistic activity, whether it's in advanced high-tech manufacturing or software and so on. Since then, by 2013, only 23 metropolitan areas have that density, which I would say is a kind of threshold platform for being able to participate in these industries and being able to advance innovation, being able to stay with the cutting edge. So yeah, we have some of the strongest ecosystems in the world: Bay Area, Seattle, Boston, Austin, Denver maybe, but there are fewer of those. And I argue that those are the platforms for state success and national success. So, we're going in the wrong direction there. Bottom line, less than half as many large metropolitan areas now have that kind of really deep supplier base and skills base and talent pools necessary to support advanced industry growth. So that's a problem. My bottom line here is the advanced industries sector is pivotal, but its viability is challenged. In Nevada, there is substantial opportunity to build on a thin presence, but you're going to have to make some, execute on some things. So let's talk a little about strategy, and then I want to open it up to conversation. Where does this leave us? What do governments and regional industry leaders need to do to defend and extend metro areas' critical advanced industries? Specifically, what should the state of Nevada do? UNLV, what should LVGA do? Others be doing to drive this industry? A lot needs to be done, but at Brookings, we're focusing on three strategy compass points. So we can talk about the nation's tax structures that probably don't help. We can talk about a number of national issues, but I want to focus on three here, three major areas. The first is simply committing as a nation or recommitting as a nation and as regions to the innovation economy by recommitting to R&D and everything that is needed to support tech transfer. Above all, that means building the infrastructure of technology development, which means committing to basic and applied research, building research specializations aligned with regional industries. You get this drift, this focus on regional ecosystems. That's where the action occurs in interactions with various institutions. So, I think this entails in Nevada committing as a state to significantly expand the universities and DRI's basic and applied research enterprise and building research specializations, again, that are aligned. And then, bring it down even farther, the tier 1 research status for UNLV, is a critical driver. Is exactly the right kind of strategy. Let's talk about skills. I mean, the state and the region have just got to pile on to upgrading the state's STEM talent pipeline. You can't build the presence in these industries without the kind of skills base in STEM especially. We'll be releasing this full-on agenda next month. For now, I'll just say that technically trained workers, whether with a 2-year or professional credentials, are absolutely critical. I was just visiting with the CEO of Banjo, this very interesting company doing sort of social media graphs for the world, and incredibly interesting business when you begin to understand what they're doing. He said that, so he's got 40 people working in Redwood City and 30 people working here. Because of difficulties in hiring, he feels he could be 5 times bigger here, and he feels it's a material drag on growth. So if you don't have the workers, and they needn't be professional, they can be, many of them can be sub-baccalaureate, you will constrain your growth. So I think, there's a few highlights of how, I think you've got to have a vision as a state of STEM's importance and begin drilling this into families and kids coming up. You've got to make it exciting, you've got to make it visible. We'll have a lot to say about how to do that. Somewhat in parallel to my first point on innovation about the importance of alignment between industry and your innovation resources, you've got to invest in industry-aligned regional skills initiatives. It's not just training for training's sake, it's training that is linked and aligned and informed by the specific granular needs of these companies that are moving fast and trying to compete globally. And then you've got to address the state's basic proficiency crisis. Over time, the pipeline will come up dry if you're not able to intervene in K through 12. It really gets down to 3rd or 4th grade, really, to excite and engage kids in this swath of, I think, pretty exciting industries. And I think, and finally, our research is showing the importance of regional clusters and supply chains in advanced industry growth. The state and regions have got to work together to foster states' emerging local ecosystems. This isn't, just a broad directive. These industries do deals, find their workers, develop technology, run their supply chain in specific local places. So that's the place to intervene. Means focusing on bottom-up regional economic development. It means aiding and abetting the emergence of clusters, attention to deepening supply chains, and then it's about creating more and richer networking and collaboration hubs, which I think is beginning to happen in Las Vegas. The downtown project's been helpful here. I think the stuff Rob Roy's doing with the Innovation Center, these are real and important ways to accelerate knowledge exchange. So, there you have 3 focuses: innovation, skills, and then these ecosystems. I think those are the crucial ways to try to drive the expansion of these industries and be supportive. In any event, you get the drift though. The real estate economy is always going to be important to Nevada. So will tourism, so will gaming, but so is diversification. It's imperative. And my candidates for economic diversification are these advanced industries. The state has targeted some of these to its credit. Work going forward, it's got to work to drill down on innovation, drill down on skills, drill down on the ecosystem resources. I think that there's a lot of cause for, grounds for optimism if some things can be organized a bit better. And with that, I'd be happy to just spend some time kicking this around. Thanks a lot for listening. Thank you. Yeah.
When I was looking at your chart of the distribution of the advanced industries,
You mean the map?
the map, how is that correlating to the universities in those regions? and their
We've
research?
actually done some regression stuff, and there are a whole bunch of things. First, patenting is very tightly linked, not just to universities, but also to partnerships within regions. So there's no major advanced industry hub that does not have a strong, university presence. And that may be, it's not just tech transfer, but it's also source of the best workers, right? You've got to have a source of technically trained workers. I think our research, though, does point to more space for, again, sub-baccalaureate workers. And I think we feel that a great community college system can be very important for supporting employment. It may not lead, to the same technology presence, but is also very important. I mean, North Carolina's gone a long way, leveraging a great now community college approach. Yeah, Tom.
Since you have that map up, so
Yeah, everybody, maps are great.
yeah, maps are great for spurring questions. So are we to read from that map that a lot of those advanced industries have moved to other countries with the disappearance of those from
two
other
things
metro
are
areas?
first that, and I think that's a big explanation of all those negative bars and in both in employment across the manufacturing, right? Yeah, like here, right? So huge carnage across the manufacturing swath, right? And a lot of that is outsourcing, offshoring, right? So that's one thing, but the other thing, though, is the reorientation or the morphing or tilt of the economy towards essentially consumption. The country over 40 years increased its dependency on imports, and meanwhile the consumption economy grew much faster than these. So you've got two things happening. We've become relatively less oriented towards this kind of sophisticated production, and meanwhile we outsourced a lot of it, especially on the manufacturing. Yeah. Here, let's see, Tom? Yeah. Good, Michael.
So a couple questions. I'm guessing that your 1980 to 2013 slide, map, reflected just a general decrease in the amount of industries, but in the size of the industries in those metros. But I think that going to the map that you were just on, a lot of the metros that are represented on the map that you were just on still have a significant portion of those industries, whether it be 10% or 8%.
Yes, there's a whole bunch that. There are a relative few that have intensified. There are a whole bunch of drifted downwards. This is a 10%. We're saying this is a healthy threshold to support, right, the kind of synergies. A whole bunch have drifted from the 10% down to the 6%. So that's happening too.
Who's intensified?
What's that?
Or who is intensified?
Seattle, Boston, Austin, right? And they've specialized, they've attracted, and they've just grown, and they've been able to capitalize. There's a suspicion that there's a kind of winner-take-all or front-runner dynamic in here. We're doing some work trying to look at the software industry, and there's some evidence that in some ways some portions of software have actually concentrated into fewer places. Even at the same time, some levels have drifted outward. So that these kind of synergies in regions can create a kind of lock-in where they kind of create almost a event horizon. They start sucking in more and more activity. And I think we could say that's happening in the Bay Area right now. You know, you've got social media exploding, but you also have all kinds of manufacturing. I read, Michael Malone, a great commentator, said we're now heading beyond the age of software into the age of devices. You know, there's now, as you know, a dense manufacturing activity going on there too. So there may be a kind of, real agglomeration going on.
I noticed, I can't help but notice, because it sticks out like a sore thumb, probably, what is that, Charleston, South Carolina, it's on that map in 2013.
Which has cleaned up in the last decade on foreign direct investment, German investments in aerospace, auto, and so on, and then bringing with them German practices like apprenticeship and, advanced supply chain management. It's an interesting story there. I mean,
so that's good leadership right there. Good leadership from the government saying we want this type of partnership going forward. Reaching out to Germany.
Leadership does matter. Like
It
creating that kind of platform that can be predictable and attractive. That they've turned themselves inside out on the skills side. Last year, I worked in Tennessee on the auto industry there. It's astonishing how focused they are, not just in attracting the next big OEM or tier one supplier, but it's all about skills, and Governor Haslam is piled on to STEM workforce. They've done things, they implemented a couple ideas we had about alignment, but the most impressive thing they did is they're applying some lottery proceeds to allow free community college for the first year. Sends a pretty powerful signal for the, and it's as they have a sense of the worker they need to allow VW to come in, right? It's not a PhD at this point. It's a capable community college graduate who can run a CAD machine or, run a robot supply chain. So.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. It's Rob Roy and Tony Shea, outside of government, providing the leadership of the culture that we need here. And I think also some of these dots represent more capital, where you can get access to capital for startups. We develop stuff here, and the capital is in the Bay Area.
Right.
Those companies move to the Bay Area.
Yeah.
And we see that constantly. Arizona sees that constantly.
Capital is probably one of the things probably politely jabbing us a little bit. Capital is one of the things we're trying to consider how we talk about it, because it's clearly important. And both at I think it's less at an early stage problem. I'm more concerned about the scale up, later stage and first demonstrations. I think that's where we have a problem in this country. Yeah, hey Tom.
To ask you some about building up the innovation capabilities in these regions, and if you've looked at all kind of the trends in that, because as you probably know and you've probably looked at, kind of the federal level and federal investment in R&D has been relatively flat. I don't think it's declining, but it's probably relatively flat.
After the huge pulse through the Recovery Act,
right,
we have a kind of
and
I'm worried about a kind of de-federal, right.
So it's and becoming more competitive. So what we've seen a little bit, at least this past year, and I don't know if it's a continued trend, and I don't know if you see this other places, but the role of states, the increasing role of states in investing in innovation and
I love
R&D,
it. This is something.
And the diversification of R&D portfolios.
This is a topic that I've been sending a ton of emails with my team. We're trying to figure out how to look at. You've read my mind. That is, I think, a very interesting possible dynamic that is going to start, and I think there's evidence of it already. We looked at shares of total R&D output on the government side, and state side has been creeping up, especially in the big states. New York, Texas, and California, with these, have huge budgets. They may not be spending huge percentage shares, but it's becoming a meaningful contribution to kind of assemblage of innovation inputs. The thing that's, that is maybe problematic because it's going to be the states with big governments and big resources that are going to be able to enter the fray, So, you got to think, how can states of modest means get into the game?
Yeah, Tom, we just want them to fund UNLV.
Well,
I'm worried about
it's
the higher
also-
education budget.
But it's also normalized to big states, California, they've also got
Yeah.
a lot of
Right.
institutions
It'll move
there,
the
too.
statistic. Conventional neoclassical economics says, that R&D is something that has to be nationalized because of spillovers, right, at the local level, that, localities will not be able to capture their investments. I think big states feel they can, right? And I think this is counter to the conventional wisdom that somehow R&D is, manifestly a federal activity. Now, I'm a sort of radical.
California did the stem cell. They
Yeah,
put in
no,
the
exactly,
stem cell,
through ballot measure. I'm kind of a radical devolver and believe in the power of states and metropolitan areas, as we do at the Metro program. But I think it's just got to happen. There is no projection on the federal budget that makes you at all encouraged about the future of federal R&D budgets, right? And if you want to have, if you want to control your destiny, I think more states are going to try to intervene.
And I think it's a potentially new model, because I suspect a lot of those areas like Boston, Colorado, Denver, others probably grew out of federal investment,
Yeah.
probably
And
in innovation.
California, you mentioned stem cell, they put hundreds of millions of dollars in the last decade. So if you want to write a Brookings brief on this topic, it sounds like you're fired up. I think this is a very interesting, I really think over 20 years from now, we're going to see that the balance of in R&D flows, the sourcing of them is going to really change. Yeah, great, Mike.
Just comment on, but by the same token, there's a inherent, I wouldn't say danger, but states are going to focus on what is relevant to their home industries, and
Yeah.
In a state like Nevada, which is always going to be gaming, entertainment, mining maybe to some extent is always going to be relevant to it.
Yeah.
At some point, investing. I imagine that I don't have any evidence of this, but I imagine that a lot of Texas's state R&D is geared towards the energy
Yeah.
industry.
No, that's really interesting. You're saying there's a kind of political economy point here that if states and metros are more on their own, we're going to get, outcomes of different types and different.
Double down on their home industry.
Sounds like you're worried that the strong and advanced industries could get stronger, right?
Right.
Massachusetts has a deep advanced industry, high-tech economy. They dominate the legislature, right? So that's interesting. Whereas, I think we're all sensing that in technology economies, there's often all kinds of lock-in. We were talking about that a minute ago. I hadn't quite thought of this. That, yeah. I think this is a great topic for future investigation. Great, thanks for bringing it up. Other thoughts?
I was curious, sorry to dominate questions. I was curious about on one slide you showed since procession investment and productivity in advanced industries and a big dent, there you go.
Yeah.
Big dent in output from 2012 to 2013.
Yeah, you know what, this is, remember through the first couple years of the recovery, the rest of the world was in better shape than the US. And remember, manufacturing kind of drove the immediate stabilization of the US. That's what I think that is. US output, really bounced back pretty well in these types of industries as we exported to the rest of the world. And exports went relatively higher, and that's kind of flattened. And meanwhile, we've had a sort of world trough. Export is declining, and that may be depressing. That's one theory. It isn't, we don't fully understand what all is going on, but clearly manufacturing, its contribution has recovered since the crash, and we're now positive in employment for the first time in 40 years. We're seeing employment growth in manufacturing in the country. And these are the most competitive, these are the manufacturing we want. We don't want to be making low-end commodity widgets in the United States. We want to be manufacturing airplanes, right? And we have done pretty well with that. So, all right. Yeah, hi.
You brought up, there's a couple of questions that I have here, but you brought up one of the slides where you talked about the output in terms of dollar amounts, and you had said $16 billion for the entire state, with $6 billion coming out of Las Vegas.
Right.
Indicating $10 billion is coming from somewhere else.
Yeah, a little bit.
Where is it coming from?
Okay, you got a big contribution from mining.
So under a technology aspect, you're lumping mining into that.
Mining is, in our view, an advanced industry. It qualifies as high R&D and has a lot of engineers and STEM workers, and it's extremely efficient.
When I look at that, I look at the piece, though, where you indicated that there was a blue dot for Southern Nevada indicating a 2.0 to a 5.8 percentage of STEM-based opportunities,
right.
but 0 for Northern Nevada, per se. Let's say, we talk about Tesla, we talk about...
It's not here because it's not in the largest 100 metros.
Okay, all right, so it's because of the city size.
Reno has a presence in this stuff. I think you guys are stronger in software. I think they have a little deeper kind of high-tech manufacturing, and clearly Tesla's going to help that.
The other thing on your charts, you don't reference China whatsoever on anything.
That's a good point. I mean, we are going to, in this report, we're going to talk more about, but I think indirectly we've talked about offshoring, and I think that's absolutely right. Quick theory, we think that actually U.S. competitiveness in a increasingly automated environment, is going to improve. And we see a lot of, I think we may see reshoring here, but without huge job growth.
Yeah, no, insource is coming back. Particularly, there's one particular industry that you haven't talked about, which is, you keep mentioning Tesla, but in reality, it's Panasonic. It's battery manufacturing in the state of Nevada. Could very well become, that could be the third largest industry for the entire state.
Yeah.
And from the food chain and supply chain resources for that industry, there's a significant amount of opportunity.
I think that's a great point. I mean, we've seen labor cost differentials have narrowed as wages have gone up there. Now those decently paid Chinese production workers are now going to lose their jobs because Foxconn is going to automate
they've been
their
losing
jobs
them
away.
regularly. I mean, workforces, particularly in the electronic sector,
Right.
have been automating over the last
And I think
5 years.
the U.S. can compete in that environment.
Definitely.
If they were talking about a flat world, right, of automation in China or automation here, you're going to automate in the United States. And
the problem is that we're not part of the supply chain. The battery is not ending up in a device.
a lot,
because
that's
it's
what
being
the
made in China.
two-map thing I'm trying to get at. A lot has happened over 40 years. We've given away a lot of capabilities, and we're going to have to rebuild.
That was one of the comments when you said you were talking about from financing and getting into manufacturing, issues. When you looked at your chart, one of the biggest issues that's come across so many people that I've talked to in the manufacturing sector is that from a banking and finance standpoint, unless I can show 16 times earnings to a bank, nobody's going to finance me putting a building up to start building things.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think when we're, I mean, large-scale finance for, production activities is probably something that maybe, we do need federal intervention on, and at minimum, I'm very supportive of this creation of a network of manufacturing hubs, manufacturing innovation hubs. I think finance actors should be part of each of those, right? If you're going to construct a presence in advanced manufacturing, finance challenges for scale up is critical, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
I agree with you, yeah. Good, well.
If there's a last question, we can take it, but Mark will also be around if you have a
Yeah, absolutely.
question you want to follow up with or didn't get a chance to ask. But let me thank Mark. Let me thank you for your great questions.
Thank you, everybody.
I love this stuff. You're seeing a work in progress here, so
Yeah.
you've had a great influence on that
Got
work.
a few notes already here.
So thank you again for coming. We'll be back with another public lecture in 2 weeks, not next week, but the week after. And we'll have a colleague out from Brookings, and we'll be looking at health information exchange systems and how states are handling that differently. And if you have an interest in the health sector, please come and join us. Thanks
Great.
again for coming.
Yeah, great. Here are my contacts, and Brookings Mountain West and ourselves and the Nevada STEM Coalition on November 12th have a major event on STEM that I encourage you all to check out. I think it's going to be a serious discussion. So thanks a lot. Really, really good input too. I think several things I've got to go write in my book here. Thanks a lot, guys.